Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Emmanuel Goldstein, who stepped straight out of the novel 1984, and he's going to talk to us about his incredible experience growing up. It's quite a story. We're also going to talk about a subject that this afternoon I dubbed political Gnosticism. Now, this is a topic I've touched on in the past, and if you go to the channel Tick History, which I also highly recommend for his discussions on the history of Marxism, well, Emmanuel, you taught me something interesting. No, don't say Nazism, call it what it's called in German, National Socialism, as opposed to International Socialism of the Marxists. And so we're going to talk about political Gnosticism. So welcome, Emmanuel.
Okay, so gonna show what I wanted to show. Okay. Can you bring up the image?
I'll bring up the image. So yeah. Okay, let's start with that, and then so talk about this, and then you can tell us your story, and then your experience, and then So this is fascinating. It's the day of work, Tag der Arbeit, Labor Day.
Yeah, this is a badge.
Yeah.
I originally got one for my grandfather, but this is not it. The original one I had was in as good as condition as you can see on the photo. But I gave it to James Lindsay.
You did? Oh my God, you met him. Good grief.
But I still have this one, which is not in as nice condition, which is why you can see it on the photo. On the photo, you can see it pretty clearly. Want me to comment on that?
So Labor Day, so that's the Labour Party, Labor Day, socialism, the National Socialist German Workers' Party. And what's that? Is that a hammer and a sickle held by the eagle? A hammer and a sickle, but they're not socialists, they're not communists, they're on the political right. They're not socialists. And I know it's in the name, but actually,
Yeah, it's because of the dialectic, their dialectical approach to everything. So they're all about struggle and conflict. So they intentionally create conflict. And if you since you since you introduced me as being straight out of 1984, you can see that very well in the Emmanuel Goldstein in 1984. He is the opposition, but he's controlled by the party, and that's kind of the point. As Lenin said, the way they're dealing with the opposition is by becoming the opposition themselves. And that's why they want you to think that socialism and National Socialism aren't the same thing, or aren't even socialist.
Go on, please. Finish your thought.
Want to show the other one?
Let's just pause for a moment. This is actually really interesting, though, because what you've shown here blows a certain, shall we say, narrative out of the water. Like Villainous says, so many socialists say Nazism is not the real socialism. That's because Nazism became our substitute for evil. It became the secular symbol of evil, the new Satan, after the war, right? And it embarrassed socialism so much they had to disassociate themselves from it. And they managed to, because of the way that the National Socialist Party was managing the economy, they managed to foist it off as capitalism, effectively, which it was not. It was socialist. The Nationalist Party's 25 points are very, very socialist, but also they used it very cleverly to demonize the concept of nationalism, because this was National Socialism. So they used it to demonize national pride, to demonize patriotism. Any kind of national pride has now been demonized. Think about it. For white people, we all know this is happening now. To have pride in a European country is now racism. So this was a very, very clever move, but it is simply just German National Socialism is merely non-Marxist socialism. It's a different form of socialism, but it shares much more than
they themselves actually sold it as that. That's why they always refer to themselves as National Socialists, and why they refer to themselves as National Socialist German Workers' Party. They completely admitted that they are socialist, but they sold it to people as non-Marxist socialism, which I disagree with, because
They were
Um,
competing with Marx. I mean, yeah, as well.
we,
But
we
yeah,
gotta we gotta get more deeply into Marx.
sure.
There's one book I almost wanted to show you, but I didn't know. Maybe you've read it already. The infamous On the Jewish Question by Marx.
I haven't. Can I just add one more point though? The Nazis, where's the socialists in one sense are inclusivity. The German National Socialists were also Darwinists. They were very much race based, and this is
Yeah.
where they've managed to successfully, where shall we say, socialists and other secularists have demonized the idea of national identity. So there were Darwinists, there were staunch Darwinists, there were race-based, and of course there was that genetic component coming from Darwinism, which of course atheists really want to disavow as well. This is why you have this, that's where you have one of these differences. Whereas the nationalists, also you had international socialism, Comintern, Communist International, whereas these Germans were more tribalist, shall we say, based on a myth of a town, of a city, of a place, of a time, of a country that never existed, but existed in myth and imagination.
You're referencing the Thule Society, I think.
Yeah. Without, I mean, but we don't want to. I don't want to get too complicated, but really,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it's the same stuff we intended to go into anyway. That kind of Madame Blavatsky stuff.
yeah. Philip says,
Um,
want to watch a lefty meltdown? Ask the difference between democratic socialism and national socialism.
I can tell you the difference.
Go for it. Yeah, I'm all ears though.
Well, democratic socialism is an oxymoron. That's like saying hot, cold, or straight curve. It doesn't exist. Because socialism, they want to fool you into thinking socialism could be
Yeah,
democratic, but by definition, socialism cannot be democratic because
it's like saying
socialism,
Satanist Christianity.
socialism is it's simply a state-owned, state-controlled economy. A lot of people in the US don't get that. They think socialism is social welfare, and they think Sweden or like half of the European countries, they think those are socialists because they're social welfare states. That's not the same
No,
concept.
no.
In Eastern Germany, we had socialism, but we didn't have social welfare like at all. I had a friend, um, and it's not like he didn't want to work. It's just that he didn't want to work in the kind of job the state was assigning to him because there's only one employer. It's the state. That's the whole point. It's a state-run economy. You don't have private employers. You're either employed by the state or you're not employed. And it's not like he didn't want to be employed. It's not like he didn't want to work or get social welfare or whatever. It's just that he wanted a different job and they rejected it, right? So because you can't go to another employer. There's only the state, right? And he just asked to have a different job, and it was rejected, and then they put him into prison. So if in a socialist country you don't want to work, uh, they won't give you social welfare at all. They'll have ways to make you work in prison.
Wow. And people complain about, wow, shocking stuff. Yeah. Yes, you said you wanted to go to another picture.
Yeah, show the one with wir sind Sozialisten der Tat. Jawohl.
I think it's this one.
Yep. So this is actually a very famous Christian image. That's Saint Martin. You know the story of Saint Martin?
Probably, but best you do it because I'm not
Well,
gonna
he's
remember.
he's a Christian saint, right? And there's like and like and he was he was a Christian during during the Roman Empire, during the persecution of the Christians, and he was in the Roman military, right? And there's this famous story where he, as a soldier on his horse, passes by a beggar, and he sees the beggar, and it's cold, and the beggar doesn't have many clothes, and so and Saint Martin doesn't really have any clothes to spare either, so he takes his sword and cuts his coat in half and gives the other half to the beggar. So that's just a famous Christian story, and they took that, and what it says is, wir sind Sozialisten der Tat. We are socialists indeed, meaning
In
in
doing,
action.
in action,
We are socialists in action, and that is also one of those kinds of badges the Nazis used in their propaganda.
Incredible. This is another nail in the false narrative of they were on the right politically. I mean, they were on the left politically. It's very clear. I mean, Tick History covers this at length in one of his shows, which I've watched more than once because you really have to pay attention because he goes in depth. And I actually bought the books that he references. And yeah, I mean, this clearly says we are socialists in action, in the deeds we do, not in word, but in deed. Incredible.
Right, and that's important if we're gonna get into socialist theology, if you will, which is really Gnostic theology. It's the same thing. And originally we wanted to talk about Gnosticism and about my own childhood growing up in Gnosticism. It ties into all that all kind of ties in together, because National Socialism is socialism, and socialism is a form of Gnosticism. It's a form of Gnosticism in action, in external action. And I tried to explain that to you this morning when I was talking about Buddhism. You might be wondering, why am I talking about Buddhism? Because thanks to Madame Blavatsky, which I hope we're also going to cover, a lot of people have this misconception that Buddhism would be Gnostic, but that's because Madame Blavatsky presented it that way. Gnostics attach themselves like a parasite to any and all religion, typically actually to Christianity, and portray their Gnostic knowledge. That's basically what Gnosticism means, or Gnostic means. It means knowledge. They portray that as a kind of higher inner secret knowledge of your own religion, that they are kind enough to share with you because you're so smart, and then they flatter you, and then that's how they always do that. Anyway, I digress. So the thing is, even though Gnostics will tell you the true Christianity is Gnostic, and the true Islam is Gnostic, and the true Judaism is Gnostic, the true Buddhism is Gnostic, that's not the case. They just attach themselves to all these religions. And with Buddhism, they kind of explicitly use Buddhism and really tell you that would be Gnostic, because there is there's some similar, broadly speaking, there's some similar goals. In Buddhism, you also kind of have the goal of transcending the human world. That's basically what all this is about. But the method is entirely different. In Buddhism, yes, you also, in Buddhism, because the Gnostics teach that, the material world would be evil and it would be an illusion, and we have to transcend that. To an extent, that's kind of similar to Buddhism, but the method they're trying to they're using to transcend all that is very different. In Buddhism, the emphasis is on letting go of your attachments to the secular world, right? But and this is why action is so important to Gnostics, because Gnostics use a different approach. They don't look inward and try to cultivate themselves and try to let go of their attachments to money or whatever. They turn entirely outward. And they want to change society itself. They don't want to let go of their attachment to money. They want to destroy the whole concept of money in society. They don't want to let go of their own attachment to wealth and status and and being famous and stuff like that. they don't want to let go of those attachments. They want to destroy all these concepts. That's the point of
Right.
socialism.
Can we just
Right?
pause a second? I've got Suna Heza saying you can still be saved being a Satanist. Now, that's an ambiguous statement. Do you mean that if you repent and leave that behind and become a Christian, or are you saying that Satanists are good Christians too? That would be suspect, just slightly. But if you want to just clarify your point a little bit, Emmanuel, go on. So, something that I've mentioned on the channel in the past, I've said to people that, you wake up in the morning, you have your coffee, and you think about your day. And I said, the jihadist wakes up in the morning, has his coffee, and he thinks about your day too. And the communist wakes up in the morning, has their coffee, and also thinks about your day. And they don't like what they see, and they want to change it.
Right,
So,
exactly, and that's what that means. That's why they emphasize action so much. Socialists, both mainstream socialists and national socialists, are all about action. There's even a national, like a neo-Nazi group that's literally called National Action. They always emphasize action, and Marx as well.
action for Palestine, those guys just they broke into Bryce Norton Air Base by a hole in the fence. It was run by Karen from HR, and they sprayed paint into the engines of air refueling tankers. So yeah, Palestine action. I mean, few people realize even Islam is a revolutionary ideology. Like Marxism, it believes in the revolution, in violent revolution. The thesis and the antithesis have to clash violently to bring the synthesis. And Islam has the same. It is revolutionary. It has jihad. It has violent clash of yours versus theirs, and then they have the peace. It's the revolution. It's James Lindsay's correct in that assessment.
Yeah, yeah. I have the same kind of discussions with both socialists and Muslims. They say, Muslims famously say Islam is a religion of peace, and they mean it. But what they mean is that once they have conquered the entire world and there are no other religions left, then we can be at peace, right? And it's the same with communists. People ask, when can we have communism? When can we have this great utopia? Why has communism always failed? Why does it always turn into these horrible things? And they're like, well, of course it can't work yet. We haven't, there's still capitalist countries. It's because of you. It's because you are still capitalists. You don't believe what we believe. You oppose us. So it's because of you that we can't have peace.
And so they guilt you into following but then they're all revolutionary. These are revolutionary ideologies, and they all want to achieve utopia, and they'll kill anyone to achieve it.
And anyone in opposition, yes, because well, if you believe what Hegel taught, and Marx was, as I'm sure you know, very big on Hegel. What really matters, and then that's very Gnostic, is the Geist. The Geist matters, yes. And Geist is a German term that,
Spirit.
Right, but it can mean more than that.
I don't mean Holy Spirit. I mean
It means, yeah, no, not Holy Spirit. It means like specter or ghost, and also it means mind at the same
mindset,
time.
attitude,
Right.
will. Yeah.
So Hegel was an absolute idealist. So to him only the Geist mattered, only the mind.
So that's will, but that would be like Crowley, the will.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that is the Satanist creed. What was Crowley's creed now again? Good grief! You know what? Well, what is Crowley's creed? Just help me out here.
Do what thou willst.
Do what thou wilt is the whole of the
What
law.
thou
Yeah,
wilt
that's
shall be the whole of the law.
so. Then this is aligned with Satanism. That's the Satanic creed.
Well, well, like I was trying to say, they are actually Gnostics, or most the kind of Gnostics that we're referring to are Luciferians, which is different to Satanists. I know, as a Christian, you'd see both of them as Satanists, but they get very offended if you call them Satanists, because to them, Lucifer is not Satan. He's not the bad guy. Lucifer to them is the good guy, is the good God. Is the morning star, is enlightenment, is light. Lucifer frees them from their matrix prison on earth, from the evil, illusory material environment. He frees them, and so he brings them light, brings them the light of knowledge. So he's the good figure. They in the cult that I grew up in, they identified him as Christ. Well, he was their Christ, and they love to use word games. They were always talking about Christ, and people just kind of assumed they meant Jesus. But Christ is not a name. Christ is a title. And to them, their Christ was actually Lucifer.
Wow. But this aligns very strongly. It's an adaptation of the idea of the Gnostics, of the demiurge, the inversion. It's another form of Gnosticism. It's insane that
Right. In a nutshell, and that's what the National Socialists believed as well. By the way, a lot of people get confused because Hitler always talked about God, but and he made very clear that he believes in God, and he follows God, and he does all the evil things he does because of his God. And again, people just kind of assume that when he says God, he means Jehovah, but he doesn't. He never said Jehovah. His God is not Jehovah. He hates Jehovah, like any Gnostic. Jehovah is their devil.
that's incredible. I mean, the things you told me, you have knowledge, I mean, beyond mine in many ways, obviously.
Yes,
So
I have stupid gnosis. That's all bullcrap.
no. Some of the stuff you say adds a layer of just extra insight into the stuff that I've been putting together. It explains it clarifies it. It's much more visceral and personal in many ways. And also, you are drawing connections between things that I've laid on the table, but you are drawing links between these things, and it's incredible. It's like James Lindsay says, they have the same vocabulary but a different dictionary. And
But
you again are
they play
illustrating.
word games. They play word games a lot.
It's incredible. I mean, I've seen this. I've hinted and spoken about these things, and I like the Sufis. The Sufis have a sense of humor, but it's, shall we say, a slightly malicious sense of humor. And like everyone says, Suf is from wool. The Sufis wool. They wear wool clothing, and that's become a very common idea that the name Sufi comes from Suf, or the wool clothing, which is nonsense, because the Sufis, when you look at their own writings, what I discovered was they called themselves Sufists, which was a play on the word sophists. And sophists are not good guys, you see, but everyone else falls for Sufists. So the wool wearers. No, they call themselves sophists. You go back to Greece, and these were the
knowledge, right? Sophia.
Correct. Take it away.
Well, show the image of the gates with the what, I don't know how to describe it.
I'll just bring them all up.
There's another one. There's two images with Sophia. Two images that contain Sophia. One is like an emblem of a school with a book, and the other is an image I took is actually of a library, but you'd never guess it's a library.
Okay,
and
wait. So I will bring up. Let me just see. Let me know when I.
Yeah. Okay. So this is you can't really see it because it's an. Can you zoom in on the second arch? Not on the first one, but on the second. So the first arch says that's Wort International, which is just it just means the word international. So, and then here it says, okay, this is not important. What's important? Can you see that? Can you see it? In the middle, it
Das
says
Wort in
Sophia
Schrift
Library
vor im
or
Bild.
Sophia
Ja?
Bibliothek. Well, it says das Zentrum des freien
Oh.
Geiste für alle Kulturen weltweit. Das Wort in Schrift, Ton und Bild. And in between it says Sophia Library, Sophia Bibliothek.
Oh my God, I missed that. Sophia Bibliothek. Yes, the Library of
That's
Knowledge.
actually the name of the place. The other stuff is just their propaganda, but that's the name of the place. That's their library where they call, where they have all their great wisdom and knowledge and
Yeah,
great
Sophia
stuff.
Bibliothek.
And it's called Sophia Library.
But also here's the word Geist that you just mentioned from Hegel.
Exactly.
For everybody, for alle Kulturen weltweit, for all cultures worldwide, the center for free spirit. But that also comes to like the free thinkers, like the atheists use the term free thinkers, which again, you come across that word and it never ends well.
Yeah, well, they actually talk about spirits a lot. They're actually, in a way, they're actually kind of similar to Islam. They have a prophet, or in their case, a prophetess, a female prophet, and how like right, Muhammad is seen as a prophet, and then there's like the angel Gabriel that appears to him and tells him this book, this divine book, right? Same thing. They have the prophetess, and then there's like, well, they don't call it an angel, but they call it ein Geistwesen. So you have that word
Spirit
Geist
being,
again.
the spirit being, yeah.
Right. But what exactly, what's that supposed to be, right? I mean, that's an angel, right? I mean, it could also be a demon, but I'm sure if I were to call it a demon, they'd get offended. So, it's an angel, right? And they call it Emmanuel, right? And then here you have you have Emmanuel again. They're very big on Emmanuel, and that's why my mother called me that. Is as you know, it's the name of Jesus in the Old Testament, and it means God is with us. Yeah. So they're very big on that. So anyway, this angel called Emmanuel appeared to the prophetess and taught her the divine book of knowledge. Yeah, and also some other stuff, and it's all contained in this great library.
Oh my God. This is like Crowley with his Awas and Muhammad with the angel gibberish. Man, the parallels, the sheer copy paste.
And I went there, and you're not allowed to take any books with you. You can look at the books, but you can't even look at them by yourself. They give you one of those annoying handlers that watches over your shoulder the entire time. It's really annoying. And also, no one would even find that place unless you're a member of the what shall we call it, cult.
You're an initiate. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, we didn't hear that. So tell me, before we go further, do you want to tell us a bit about your upbringing, how you came to all this knowledge? I mean, your story is fascinating. So your upbringing.
I didn't want to have this knowledge and this Gnostic. I never believed in anything Gnostic, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to know any of that, and I don't believe in it. I never did. But I was born into it. I was born into that group.
With your mom. I mean, the story you were
more
telling
specifically,
me.
I was born into that group where I just showed you the image.
So tell us more. I mean, just describe like what with your mom being a communist, and just tell us that and how the two were connected and how that started to get you to see, because you were immersed in this. I mean, that's really fascinating.
So my mother was a very devout communist, very devout Marxist. Her PhD was entirely on Marx, and then she after After her studies, she became a communist politician, and a member of the Communist Party of both East Germany and West Germany. We lived in West Germany, but she, because of her status, she was able to travel freely between East and West Germany. And officially, she was a member of the Communist Party of West Germany, but in reality, it was entirely funded by East Germany. And so after East Germany collapsed, she lost all her funding, and she even basically lost her position. And when the Berlin Wall came down, everyone celebrated, and I still remember that a lot. And everyone was so happy, everyone celebrating, except my mother. My mother was depressed for many months. She was the only one, and out of that depression, she joined that group. I mean, she was into that group before. I mean, like I said, she even gave me that name because Emmanuel is basically their version of the angel Gabriel. But she didn't live at that group. That group was like a um uh well, basically they're Gnostic Christians. So of course they don't say that they're Gnostics. They just pass themselves off as Christians, and they tell people that they're the true original Christians. But what they really mean by that is that they believe the Gnostics to be the true original Christians. And they had, at least at that, they don't anymore. But at that time, they had like what was basically a commune, and they had like properties and like farms where people would live, and everyone would be equal, and no one would have any money. And of course, some people would be more equal than others, and that kind of thing. And so after East Germany collapsed, my mother decided to move to that property. So we went into that commune and we started to work for that group.
Right. And then you said that you started to see the connections between Marxism and that whole political system and the Gnostics. There was enough similarity for this to be comfortable for your mom to join, because you started to see there were links between this.
Right, right. Well, basically, this is a bit difficult to explain. Basically, both um, socialism as well as uh, the group I was in, as well as Gnosticism in general, it's basically a they have two tiers. They have like like when if you read 1984, there's like there's like outer party members and there's inner party members. So it's kind of that kind of concept. And in that group we had that as well. There was like an outer layer, and there were like outer members who thought that we were Christians, and then there was like the inner members that knew that we were actually Gnostics, and they were heavily and directly into that.
But that's exactly what socialism
And it's the same
is.
with socialism. The and because my mother, um, I mean, she was almost like a communist official, because she was a, relatively active politician. She was almost borderline at that inner party level, so to say. And
Okay.
at that level, well, they are absolute idealists, and I realize that's contradictory, yeah, but that's the point, and that's the point of the dialectic, and that's the point of Hegel, and that's the point of Marx. It's to embrace contradiction. They love contradiction. So the normal mainstream communist follower is an absolute materialist, but the communist leaders are absolute idealists.
That's
And that already goes very much into Gnosticism. And They are my point is the communist leaders are essentially Gnostics, and my mother kind of knew that. So that's why it was very easy for her to transition from being a communist to being a quote unquote Christian Gnostic. That seems contradictory, but she knew that stuff well enough to realize that it's not a contradiction.
You know, in this book, Political Ponerology by Andrew or Andrzej Lobachevsky or Wobachevsky, this is his experiences in Poland. And it's called Ponerology. Was a term they created to describe a science on the nature of evil adjusted for political purposes. And it's a dense book to read, but he describes this, how people's minds get to how they give themselves over to this ideology and how they change, how they psychologically change, how it affects them. And he speaks here of the inner circle and the outer circle. And when you get to the inner circle, you have the outer circle has the exoteric group, and then you have the esoteric, like the exoteric, and you know the external and the internal, and the words change meaning. Oh wow, Silver, thank you very much for that donation, £10. Thank you. He says the Islamic crescent moon, the communist sickle, and pagan bullhorns all have the same shape. I'm sure this is a coincidence. We'll talk.
Want me to talk about that?
Well,
you saw the images, right?
I have them. No, we didn't show them yet. But
show the images.
But he speaks of exactly what you speak of the meanings change, and there's a higher meaning and often an inverted meaning. And also it's a way of identifying who knows what, because they've got the wrong views, or so it's a way of sorting the sheep from the goats, but also identifying who's who. And it's a way of also keeping you on your toes and keeping you confused and hiding things. And it's a complete mess, but it's a very calculated, very deliberate game that's being played, and only those at the top really know what's going on. It's interesting what you say. I mean, you've got this, and this is present in Islam as well. That is also the case. Yeah, this is present in Islam. So yeah, shall we show those pictures that you spoke of? Also, I want to show people just something that I covered yesterday. This is by Richard Wurmbrand, Marx and Satan. This man spent 14 years in prison for being a priest that was obviously working against the communist regime. He knows what he's talking about, and he gives us these quotes. If you watched me yesterday with Usama, but this is Marx. Now, I've covered already Marx speaking of giving his soul to Satan, and Marx serving Satan, marching to Satan's drum, of wanting to plunge the toxic sword of death and communism into the world to destroy the heart of the world, and to bring death and destruction. But he writes here, I wish to avenge myself against the God who rules above. Now, this is not a man who's a materialist and a man who's just got political or economic intentions. He's got a completely different set of agendas here. The idea of God is the keynote of a perverted civilization. It must be destroyed. This is anti-Christian. This is anti-logos, anti-God. I mean, in the most extreme. You know, it is anti-life at the end of the day. It's always anti-life.
Gnostics hate God.
And they hate life because life is cursed.
They hate the entire material world. They think the entire material world is just a prison and an illusion.
Yeah. I mean, this is crazy. Okay, shall we bring up those pictures that you brought? So let me see, which ones do we do?
If you want me to answer that question, right?
Sure, go on. Yeah.
Want to show those? Yeah. Show the ones that correspond with that.
Let me see if I've got the right ones here.
The ones in the second folder. Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah. So this is okay. Maybe we should. This is easier to explain if you show the Saturn configuration first. Well, okay. No. Show the Saturn configuration. Yeah, it's very similar. But why is? Yeah, okay. Give me a second. Why is that? Okay.
Give me a sec. I'll bring this up as well.
Star. Okay. So okay. Lots of photos. Which one should I focus on? So okay.
The Saturn. This is the Saturn one, correct? Am I correct?
Okay. Well, on the very right, you have the communist symbol, obviously, duh. Then that is the astronomical sign for Saturn, and you can see that it's not exactly the same, but it kind of looks like a stylized hammer and sickle, stylized. That is the astronomical symbol for Saturn to this day. Show the other one.
Yeah, let me
Go
go
back.
through. So let me bring up multiple photos.
Okay,
Let me
so
do.
okay, here you can see that it's very similar to the Islamic symbol.
Give me a sec. Let me bring up this, and then the. Let me
Okay,
see if I bring up.
there was one web image. I don't think it didn't carry that.
This one.
Okay, this is no, it didn't. I don't. Can you check the folder? There should be like one web p
Let me go
image.
through all of them. Let me start at the beginning.
Okay.
Let me go.
Go back. Yeah, that's what I meant. Go back.
This one, no.
Back. Yeah, that. Go
Oh,
back.
here.
Okay, so that's the Saturn configuration. It's the book is called The Saturn Myth by David
David
Talbot,
Talbot, yeah.
who is a comparative how do you call it? Comparative
Pathologist.
mythologist, exactly, and astronomer. And he basically discovered that, or that's his theory, is that in ancient times, the orbits of the planet, because we kind of assume, the orbits of the planets, they like never change or something, but of course they do. Of course they change over time. And his theory is that in ancient times the orbits of the planets were different, and especially Saturn was closer in orbit to the Earth. And go back to the Islamic symbol. Yeah. So this is all the same. This is actually, a lot of people think this is like, well, a lot of people think this is the morning star. It is the morning star. But nowadays the morning star is Venus. But back then, Saturn was associated with the morning star. And that's also where Lucifer ties in. Lucifer is just the Latin for morning star. And the crescent, a lot of people think that's the moon. It's not the moon. This is the same kind of crescent we see, as you can see in the communist symbol. And that's why Saturn, as a pagan deity, is always associated with the crescent. And to give you a simple example, it's not exactly like that. But to give you a simple example for the association, if you look at Saturn at an angle, with its ring, you can see how at an angle the ring of Saturn can look like a crescent. So those are actually both symbols for Saturn. The 5-pointed red star is the morning star, Lucifer, Saturn. And
there were famous Gnostics associated with Islam on the border of just inside Turkey. They had just on the border between Syria and Turkey, where Abraham came from, and they called these Sabaeans. No, they called the Sabians, and they were actually star and moon worshippers. They were Gnostics, and in fact, the Quran confuses them with Christians. It calls them people of the book, but they are moon worshippers, and they're Gnostics. And it's insane that the Quran thinks that these are Christians. So, there's certain parallels here. There are certain historical parallels, and yeah, there's a lot more to the David Talbot stuff. We don't really have time to go in right now, but there's a lot of he's done a lot of work, and he's got some interesting things. I don't necessarily agree with all of his conclusions, but his evidence is very, very compelling. There's a lot of very, very interesting things he does say, and there's a lot that I do agree with that newer astronomy does confirm. So yeah, there's a lot going on there.
You're right. We shouldn't go too much into that. I'm not going to go too much into that. I don't know too much about Islam anyway. But let's still talk about. You know much more about Islam than I do. But let's still talk about the image of the Kaaba. Can you still bring up the image of the Kaaba? Oh yeah, that one. Okay, great. You see that? So on the right you have the Kaaba. On the left, that is I don't know how familiar you are with astronomy. Saturn has an eternal storm on its north side, and that's the eternal storm on Saturn. And you can see it's like kind of this hexagon shape, and it's always in that hexagon shape. It never changes. And you can see how that looks very similar to the Kaaba. And of course,
Yeah, this
what's contained in the Kaaba, as a lot of people and including a lot of scientists nowadays say, is a meteoroid, right? A wherever it came from, but it is a meteoroid, right? So they are worshipping. They are pagans. They're worshipping pagan planetary deities like Saturn, and so that rock came from the heaven. So they associate with Saturn and build that whole thing to worship Saturn.
Yeah, actually, let me bring up something. I'll just do a quick link to Islam here. I just want to go through a couple of ideas.
Okay, yeah. On the bottom, you have the divine bull. Again, that's
Yeah.
and again, it looks kind of similar to the crescent.
So if you go back to the area where Islam came from, to Yemen and East Africa, you're going to find that this symbol as well. This can represent a star or the sun disk. You've got the similar crescent going back. You can see it here as well. You'll see it here. This is a very ancient symbol. It was definitely a not. I mean, the Muslims are drawing on a pagan symbolism, and then this here is also this crescent, and you've also got the moon, and you've got stars here, like these three lamps or three stars. Hold on, let me just bring up an image that you had a moment ago. Bring this up for a second. See here, Saturn and three stars. Saturn eating his sons, right? But here you can see Saturn was a very vicious god in the mythology. Oh, wow, Silver, thank you very much. Notice the crescent and the three stars, right? Then you've also got here the crescent and the three stars, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And you've got the cube, the Kaaba, right? And you've got the bull, the same symbolism here, 3 lines. And then, of course, you've got, notice here, they move around it, the stars. Also, you've got, it's all astronomical symbolism. I mean, all of it is linked to astronomy in some way. You've got the large disk of the sun, the moon, and this is like the center of the universe. And yeah, so there's lots of different symbolisms that are all meshing and merging and maybe forgotten or whatever, maybe hidden, who knows. But there's definitely, even the Kaaba, it's well known. Archaeologists decades ago were writing in proper scientific papers and their findings that the Kaaba is an astrological symbol. It is a megalith like Stonehenge and other megaliths. This is well established decades ago. Yeah, enough of that, but thanks. Oops. Yeah, so back to you again.
Yeah, that's as much as I wanted to say about that. Like I said, I don't know too much about Islam. I leave all the other aspects of Islam to you.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's all astrological alignments, it's all planets, and it's all moons and stars and suns. You're right. I don't disagree there. Yeah, and so shall we just go through the other photos you have and just go through them one by one, and then maybe just you can talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just scroll through them, and you can just tell me to stop.
That just ties into what we just talked about. Again, that's Mecca.
Yeah, and
you can see Mecca at the bottom. Let's not talk about that other photo. Like, except
okay.
you want to. Except if you want to.
We'll see. Maybe the audience jumps out, but let's have a look here. Okay, let's just go through. Let's skip that.
Okay,
Saturn.
so this is Saturn, obviously. This is again, it's like similar to the concept of Saturn, the pagan deity, the personification of Saturn. Again, you can see like the morning star in the background, and of course the sickle.
He was also known as Kronos, the god of time.
Well, Kronos and Saturn is the same thing.
Yeah, and he would also
Saturn is the Roman variant, and Kronos is the Greek variant.
Yeah. And he would eat his children or something like that, which probably ties in symbolically to the idea of the thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
Well, and
he would destroy
it
the existing.
ties in as well to all the kind of stuff the Bible talks about and condemns. Like the worship of Baal and sacrificing onto him and stuff like that.
Yeah, interesting. Philip says the devil does not care what you worship as long as it is not the Lord, and that's a fair point. Let me just see if there's any other comments. So hold on. Okay, I've got the wrong folder. So let me go to the correct folder. Let me do that. Let me first go to the.
Yeah, there's two folders. There's one like
let's do the
related to
folder.
Saturn, and there's one more related to what I grew up in. Okay, so
yeah, let's just take them one by one. This is Lucifer, the light bearer. It's the morning star.
Yeah, maybe you can make it bigger, so that you can read what's on the bottom. Okay, scroll down to the bottom. Scroll down to the bottom.
Yeah, just so people see it. Lucifer.
Here you can see. Okay, so Madame Blavatsky. So this is Madame Blavatsky's magazine. She published a magazine, and it was just directly called Lucifer. And but of course, here on the bottom, she explains the light bearer is the morning star or Lucifer. And Lucifer is no profane or satanic title. It is the Latin Luciferus, the light bringer, the morning star, equivalent to the Greek the name of the pure, pale herald of daylight.
Can anyone read Greek? We need to know what this says here.
Well, I'm assuming it's just Lucifer in Greek.
Yeah, I would love to be. Yeah, who knows? I can't read Greek. So, but that's interesting. So Lucifer is no profane or satanic title. It's the Latin Luciferus, the light bringer, the morning star. But that's the biblical Satan. So that they are equating him as the good guy, the bringer of knowledge, and that his knowledge is what has been hidden or suppressed, and they need to embrace that. So,
right, like I said, it's a complete inversion of Christianity. They call themselves Christian Gnostics, but they're Christian only insofar as that it's a complete inversion of Christianity. To them, Lucifer is the good guy, is their savior, and Jehovah is basically their devil.
Wow.
And here you can see Theosophical Monthly. So it was, it was literally Madame Blavatsky's monthly magazine. It's literally called Lucifer, and on the cover, as you could see, you have literally Lucifer bringing the light, bringing the morning star.
Wow. As for the question, Ave Maria, I have no idea. Do you know anything about this question?
What does she mean? Astrological.
The Revelations have the astrological. That's about astrology. It's astrology.
Well, there is. I remember. There's a woman crying out in birth pains.
Is the constellation of Virgo? I honestly, I don't know. I cannot.
I don't know either. I don't know either. This is. I'm not an astrologer or astronomer or anything like that.
Yeah, well, I know nothing there either, so I can't answer. I'm sorry about that. Spirit Fury says, "Thank you. Glad to know." Let's see another question. Does the representation of the three stars have anything to do with the 3-point symbol of the Freemason?
3 point. I'm not a Freemason. I don't
know. Yeah. Villainous says that the Muslims are always saying that the crescent and the star has nothing to do with Islam, but then why is it on top of every mosque? And then they also know it's a symbol from the Ottomans. The Ottomans were the Muslim empire for centuries. The Ottomans were the massive Muslim empire. They ran Islam. They were Islamic. They are Islam. What? I mean, it's like me trying to pretend the cross has nothing to do with Christianity.
It's a remnant of the pagan elements in Islam.
Yeah, clearly, and I just showed those pictures. Those are pagan elements from also the astrological religions. It's a holdover, but it still has meaning. There's a shall we say, a social memory that's embedded, a historical memory that's embedded.
I mean, that's why they're all using that, because because historically, it had a big impact, of course, on ancient people.
Yeah. Silver says, thank you. Silver Mubasa says phosphorus. That's apparently the Greek word phosphoros. Phosphorus.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
women. So Sufi Shriners of 33rd degree Freemasons. John Wayne was one. Yeah, I'm going to do something on the Freemasons in the future, but I'm going to stay away from all of this. Too much conspiracy theory nonsense. I'm only going to do what I can document. And interesting. So let's go to the next picture. This is fascinating stuff, man. Honestly, Emmanuel, every time you say something, it's like ching, 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 ching. You just make light bulbs go through my head. It's crazy. Let's do the
No,
next one.
the group I grew up in was very heavily influenced by Madame Blavatsky.
Let's do the next one. That is crazy. So it means that these Gnostics are satanic as well. I mean, look, I'm going to use the term satanic, but when you say Luciferian, fine. But
Oh
from a
yeah,
Christian point of view,
I see them. I basically see them that way as well. It's just that I don't like to say that because I know they get very offended
yeah.
if you call
But
them
from a
Satanists.
Christian perspective, it's a distinction that makes no difference.
From a Christian perspective, yeah, I can see how from a Christian perspective it's basically Satanism, and I don't disagree.
So here we have the Nazis, the Nazi eagle. You've got the National
Yeah,
Socialist
we
symbol,
had that already.
the hammer and sickle. For those who are new, who missed it, those who just joined us, that's the hammer and sickle. That's the communist hammer and sickle. The Nazis were socialists, National Socialist, German Workers' Party, the Labor Party, and that's the hammer and sickle here with these Nazis. Then we are socialists in action, right? They are National Socialists as opposed to the Marxist International Socialists. They were a much smaller club. Okay, we've covered this one with
So like I said,
Sophia
this
Library.
Sophia library of the Gnostic Christian Gnostic religious group, commune, cult, whatever you want to call it. I grew up in.
Yeah, no, the
Yeah,
Nazis were
they were. Yeah, Nazis were as well heavily influenced by Madame Blavatsky. That's why that's what I'm trying to say is that there's a connection there, right? And I feel there's a bit of a distinction, right? They're not exactly the same. It's like when in Islam you have like different denominations, right? And it's kind of the same concept. In Gnosticism and in Socialism, you also have different denominations.
because it's
So
subjective
National
in very
Socialism is
real.
a denomination, and mainstream socialism is a denomination, and so on. But at the end of the day, they all belong to the same religion. They all belong to Gnosticism. And mainstream socialists are more heavily influenced by Hegel, whereas National Socialists are more heavily influenced by Madame Blavatsky. This is the compound of that religious group I grew up in.
Yeah, but look at the satanic horns on top. That's kind of like just giving it away.
I don't know. I wouldn't.
No,
I don't know
that's
what.
the little horns, man. That's the little horns.
Maybe.
That's all I see. That is on the nose, man. They could have designed that so differently. The doors could have opened outwards. The doors could have folded out differently. They could have folded out. They had to do it this way. I mean, come on. I mean, that's little satanic horns coming out. That's Casper the Friendly Ghost cousin. I mean, come on. Clearly, it's. Let's see. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, the symbolism is in your face. It's really okay.
Okay,
What
so
is
this
this?
is their logo, their symbol. Again, I feel it's kind of similar to the Islamic crescent, right? A little bit. And well, the surface explanation is that it's just the letters CH, but I feel the H isn't really an H. It's like if you look closely, it's like two columns, right? It's two columns. So to me that
Yes, it
reminds
is.
me like of these again of these columns in esotericism and occultism, like how do you pronounce it, like Boaz and Yahim, and also it's related to all this occult stuff, and of
You
course
know
the
what?
key. Yeah,
Go on, please. No, go on.
well, the key again, what they will tell you, at least at the inner level, is the key is gnosis.
I would agree. There's something. Also, there's the omega. They got the omega symbol tilted to the side. This is the omega. You know, the Greek omega, the end, tilted on the side. If you tilt it 90 degrees, you get the. Well, let me just get the Greek omega. Let me just bring that up here. See that? That's the Greek omega. There. Oops. That's the Greek omega, and that's just the Greek omega tilted on one side. The 24th and last letter of the Greek alphabet. It's 800, and yeah. So that's like the alpha and the omega. So that's the omega. It's a play on that, I suspect. And then also, what's interesting is when you look at the Islamic symbolism, and you go back to the pagans from that region. It also says, I believe it's in, I don't know if it's Deuteronomy, Leviticus, but it states to Abraham, he must not worship the pillars because he's forbidden to worship pillars. And notice there are pillars in the Kaaba. There are those 3 pillars in the Kaaba. And the pagans had the 3 pillars. And then you've got these pillars as well that the pagans worship, and the trees as well. So that there's interesting, there's this parallel with the symbolism that makes links. Very interesting. And the keys of Solomon, would that be a relevant link here? I know we're being somewhat speculative.
The only thing I know about well, the only thing I know is like, how do you say it in English? It's like, is it called the lesser key of Solomon? It's like a grimoire. It's a kind of stuff my mother used. She was later on she was very heavily into occultism. So she would use like grimoire, like spell books, like literal spell books, and then they had like all kinds of how do you call it, like sigils? How do you call it, sigil in English?
Sigils.
Yeah, like symbols, occult symbols, and she would draw them, or she would form them out of sticks, and then she would burn the sticks and do rituals. But also
notice there's a crescent here. There's a crescent here.
Yeah.
It's an omega with the crescent, and then you've got the key in the middle. That's interesting. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, this is not my expertise. This is not my thing. But there is no religion higher than truth.
That's a very, very Gnostic position, of course. And of course, that's the symbol of the Theosophical Society, which Madame Blavatsky founded. So yeah, it has all these religious symbols, but then of course, there is no religion higher than truth.
Peak here, you've got this Nazi symbol at the Ouroboros. Comes back to the. I mean, this is the reverse Nazi symbol. I guess this is the Hindu symbol. But this is also, people say this is a Hindu symbol. No, it's in fact probably older than the Hindus. It's a Norse symbol. It's a European symbol. It's all over Europe. You can even find it in North America, but you'll find it in Europe. It's been around for thousands of years. This symbol goes back. So this is part of the mythicism of the National Socialist Germans. And
right, that's why they chose that. And of course that's not by a long shot. They took a lot of things from Theosophy. Most notably, of course, aside from the symbol, the whole concept of Aryans is that was actually something that Madame Blavatsky came up with, and the National Socialists just took it. And like I find it very interesting why no one questions that. Right? It's like, I mean, it's not like, they of course they try to pass it off and say, oh, this this is like, this comes from German traditional culture. That's bullcrap. There is nothing in German traditional culture that talks about Aryans, or especially not, and especially identifying the Germans with Aryans. That doesn't make any sense. Has nothing to do with German culture. Comes entirely from Madame Blavatsky, because she has that whole thing with all these root races, and the Aryans would be like obviously the most pure and the best race, and so we have to basically become the Aryans and get rid of all the impure races. Yes, they have to disappear.
Right. Agreed. What is the symbol on top here? I've never done any research on
I
this. So
think that's
very
Hindu.
little.
I don't
This
know, but
one here.
I think that's Hindu.
Okay, so I mean, this is obviously the preeminent logo, but then you've got this. Let's say the word Nazi symbol here. The Ouroboros completes here, right? Which is interesting. Then they've got these other things. You've got these. Yeah, I mean, whose version of the truth? But then also I don't know. This may have to do with the Ring of Solomon, as Ave Maria says. It's not Hindu. This actually is. It's actually European. The Hindus can go jump in a lake about this because they were following. But I do have a question. Not to say that they rejected. They were obviously examining all of these philosophies and all of these mythologies. But as Silver said earlier, the Persians are Aryans. Did they take a lot of this from the Sufis? Because the Sufis come from that region, and a lot of these movements, from the Freemasons to you name it, take from the Sufis. For them, the Sufis are the source. So, did they take from the Sufis? I mean, I would venture yes if I had to guess.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know where Madame Blavatsky got it from. I know Madame Blavatsky is the one who really popularized that whole concept in Germany, and it wasn't popular in Germany before Madame Blavatsky, and yeah, maybe she got it from the Sufis. It's possible.
Okay, thanks.
I
So,
don't know.
someone said it's
You
the
would know that.
symbol.
If anyone knows that, it's you.
Well, the Sufis are, I mean, they're more of a, so we say, a Shia initiative, which had got absorbed into the Sunnis. I mean, they're now very present in the Sufis. In fact, if you go to Al Azhar University in Cairo, which is the oldest, most preeminent theological university in Islam, they have 5 schools of jurisprudence, 4 Sunni, and the Jafari school of Shia Islam, which is seen as valid, which is interesting. And where they connect, according to Islamic doctrine, is that the Shias and the Sunnis connect at the level of Sufism. And not only that, but the Al Azhar University, the rector is a Sufi. The previous rector was also a Sufi. And they teach the 7 schools of Sufism as well, not just the 5 schools of jurisprudence. And the Sufis have to have both sets of knowledge. And someone said, yeah, this is the Om symbol. That's the Hindu Om symbol. And notice what's on top. There is the crescent and star, or crescent and sun, moon and star. Very interesting. Now, so we come back to these old pagan ideas. Silver Mombasa, thank you very, very much. He's just donated $20. I'll wait for the question to come through. It hasn't. Yeah, I know this. I've covered this, SDR. I've covered Adam Glauer, the Baron von Sabottendorf. I've covered him at length on this channel. I will do it again. I have to finish my talk.
He's
In fact, the Nazi Party comes out of the Tool Society. The Nazi Party was based on, literally came out of the Tool Society, which is an occult Gnostic organization, a Muslim occult Gnostic Sufi organization, and then boom, next year they become the Nazi Party out of a Muslim movement.
Adam Glauer was if I remember correctly, and I think you talked about that, right? He was very big into Sufism, right?
Yeah, he was a Sufi. No, he was legitimately a Sufi. Thank you very much, Sylvie. Says, Lloyd, may no weapon formed against you be allowed to prosper in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. Really appreciate it. So, I mean, you've got, okay, Ave Maria says, I think the Om symbol they use it to show the meditative state you have to be in to astral project. Well, one of the main aims, if you're a Sufi, I'm kind of relating it to Islam and those things. Emmanuel, I'll let you continue in a moment, but I'm trying to relate it also to Islamic, because these ideas cross boundaries, they cross geographies. And the Sufis want to disconnect from matter because they believe the matter is cursed. In fact, Islamic doctrine, the Sharia teaches that matter is cursed, that the world is cursed, and that you have to disassociate from matter, enter into a pre-rational or post-rational state. So you must not live within the realm of the mind because you're trapped in matter. So you have to be free of reason, free of logic, free of rationality. And then once you become just detached from reason and from matter, you can then using these states, pass through the 99 layers, and then you can enter into the throne room of Allah, and you can then merge with Allah. You can have communion directly with Allah. So Gnosticism believes matter is evil. Islam teaches that the world of matter is evil. So yeah. So back to you, Emmanuel. So shall we go to the next picture?
Yeah, I missed what you said. I took the opportunity to go to the toilet, but I'm assuming what you just did was summarize the Gnostic ideology of the world being evil.
From a Sufi perspective, yeah.
I just tell people to watch the Matrix movie, and then they know what Gnostics believe.
Crazy, yeah. But also the Sufis believe also, they teach you that you have to disassociate yourself from logic, because logic is based in your mind, and you have to be free from your mind. Therefore, you must be disassociated and remove yourself from logic and reason, which makes me think, why did Martin Luther write an entire treatise raging against logic? Because you had to deny
he's
logic.
illogical? I don't know.
No, because logic is the work of Satan. Reason,
of course.
Logic is the work of Satan, and if you use logic, you will end up doing Satan's handiwork. So you must not use reason and logic. And you're like, that don't sound so right. You know, so yeah, I just think, like, so where did he get these ideas? You know, they don't come from anything that I know as Christianity. You know what I'm saying? So Luther, I have my suspicions, man. I just hope I can prove it one day, but man, I have
Well,
suspicions.
like it says here, there is no religion higher than truth. So they're more true than the religion of Christianity. They're a higher truth. They're more truth. They are hyper truth. They're super truth or something. I don't know.
My truth. Yeah, all of that nonsense. So
Oh,
good
okay.
some Latin.
Sadly, I only have that in very low resolution.
Sure.
But as was explained to me when I was in that group, basically, and I think everyone can kind of see that, that's the tree of knowledge right there. Of course, this is one of their companies. They're making a lot of money. They have people work on their, like, or at least that's how it used to be. They have like people work on their communal farms for free, basically, because they tell people, oh, money is evil and you shouldn't care about money. So just work for us for free so that we can make a lot of money, right? And that's like one of their companies, and where they basically exploit the people working on the communal farms and then sell the produce. And of course, so on the top is the name of the company, Gut zum Leben, which is, again, it has multiple meanings. You can interpret it as saying good for living, but you can also interpret it as saying good can also be a property. So it is, it's like, or a commune, or a farm or whatever. So because it was it was the farm that we lived on and basically never left. So so it was our entire life, kind of. And then on the bottom it says Die Güter Neu Jerusalem. Now that I have to explain. So it means the goods of New Jerusalem. And basically they were trying to well, similar to the communists, they were trying to build like well, it's also contradictory. On the one hand, they tell you, oh, matter is evil, we have to transcend it, blah blah blah. But on the other hand, they also kind of tell you, well, we have to create this paradise on earth. And that's kind of what they sell you as communism. They say, oh, communism is great because it's this man-made paradise on earth. We don't need God. We can create our own paradise right here on earth. And that was their attempt to do that. They called it New Jerusalem. They were trying to literally build a physical paradise on earth.
Interesting. You just made me think of something, and it's now popped out of my head as you were saying it. But it led me to think of Marx. But if you look at the practical outcome, they've always ever ended up murdering millions to create this paradise, because they also need to cleanse the earth of what is impure. And those who have the wrong thoughts, who harbor the wrong thoughts. You look at the political landscape today, and you've got, from a third world perspective, I grew up in the third world, so I have a third world mind. I understand third world thinking, and it's very, very different to European, American, first world, white college educated thinking. And it's not, people don't want to think ill of others. They want to see them in a positive light. But when I listen to these third world, these immigrants and things speaking, and also even these communists who think very much in a third world fashion, who are not, I mean, they use first world terms, and but you see this resentment politics, this politics of resentment and jealousy. You see a very third world, very uneducated, very crude philosophy behind it, underpinning it. And where am I trying to go with this? I'm not explaining this very well. So let me gather my thoughts, and I'll come back to that. But there's something very unhealthy, unwholesome about this, and they always end up killing things. But you also realize there's always a latent threat behind it. I guess I'll try and explain it later. The thought is still forming in my head, but there's always this latent threat within these philosophies. They always talk about nice things. They paint a lovely picture, but the truth is it's fuzzy. They don't know how to get there. Marx said, look, socialism is the tool to get us to the Garden of Eden, which is communism, the paradise. But it's basically, he used the South Park method, which is step 1, underpants. Step 2. Step 3, success.
I only paid attention to one South Park episode, and well, two South Park episodes. They have one episode about Scientology, and that's actually the episode with David Blaine. On the surface, they have an episode about David Blaine, but in reality, it's an episode about Scientology. And then they have another episode, which everyone thinks is the Scientology episode, but that episode is on the surface about Scientology, but in reality is about Gnosticism, where they expose the inner teachings of Scientology. Remember that, right? With Lord Sinu, the demiurge, right?
I don't think I've seen that. I don't think I've seen that. But
that is Scientology's version of Gnosticism. That's their inner teaching, right? Their inner teaching is Gnostic, and they of course sell it in all that science fiction crap, right? With Lord Sinu, but in reality, it's just Gnosticism. Lord Sinu is Lord. The Lord. It's their version of the demiurge, right? And whatever they talk about, bodies, Satans, that's the archons, and it's Gnosticism. And of course, the earth is a prison. It's a Lord Sinu keeps us trapped on the earth prison. Gnosticism.
Right.
It's just Gnosticism with science fiction bullshit.
You should actually analyze it one day. Just give it. We can just talk. We can pick a couple of movies, a couple of TV shows, and we take 2 or 3, and you just analyze them. You just go through them, deconstruct the symbolism and the ideas. It's fascinating to me the way that you watching some of your videos. By the way, Emmanuel's channel and his Substack are linked in the description. You'll find them below, and so you can go to his channel. I actually realized, I had not realized years ago already, I had watched some of his material, and on the communist symbol, because I was looking into that, and he gave me some hints, which I want to dig into deeper again one day. And then also, I had watched his deconstruction of the Lego movie. And you realize that these subtleties, you realize there's these things that don't have to be there, but they're there. They could have chosen the name Janet, but then they choose a name that
Lucy.
Lucy, yeah, like Lucifer, you know, and you realize they could have chosen. These things have symbolism attached. That's subtle, but they believe in subtle magic. They believe in letter magic. They believe in word magic. You know, you realize, but why would they choose these things that have these propensities rather than just neutral? You know, you realize it's not neutral. You know, I mean, look, there's always conspiracy theorizing, granted, but you just realize, like, yeah, there's something about this. Who's writing these things? I mean, you look at the woke movies and TV
Gnostics
shows
are
up
writing
now.
those things.
Yeah, people with no understanding of real human nature. So go on, Ingsoc.
Oh, I just included that because you were asking for a picture of me. So and I think I'm not that pretty, so I gave you the logo instead. But that's actually just a logo from 1984.
All right. Tell me, is there some symbolism to the black versus white? Is there some kind of, and also you
Well,
got this red
actually, the whole
symbol.
symbol. That's from 1984, the movie. So when they made that movie, they took actual Soviet Union satellite states, like, you know, East Germany, as an inspiration. So the handshake, that's actually, or the whole basically the whole symbol is actually the official symbol of the Socialist Unity Party.
So harmonization of
The
contradiction.
party, the Socialist Unity, the whole thing is inspired by the symbol for the Socialist Unity Party, which was the ruling party in East Germany. They
But is
have
that
a
also,
symbol which is basically identical.
but also the harmonization of contradiction, which is itself an oxymoron and, you know, completely contradictory? Do you think there's something there, black and white? There's no harmonization. It's just forcing them together. Thesis,
Well,
antithesis.
we don't. Yeah, it's kind of weird because we don't even have black people in East Germany,
Yeah,
or
I
at
just
least
thought,
at that time there were like literally no black people in East Germany.
or maybe you've got black versus white because you've got the red inside of the black. Black is bad, and then you've got the communism infiltrating through the black.
I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, yeah, I
Oh,
know you could.
maybe since I don't know the first thing about Masons, but maybe it's a Masonic handshake.
That is also a possibility. It's definitely not
Come to
AI
think of it, it
generated.
kind of looks like a Masonic handshake.
I have no idea. I have no idea. So, okay, that's die Sophia Schulen, the Sophia Schools. Lern mit mir für das universale Leben. Learn with me for the universal life, or for universal living.
Wait, that was Universal Life, Universelles Leben was actually the name of the group of the local group that I grew up in, that I've been talking about. And again, I just, you know, I found that logo interesting because again it mentions Sophia. So just, you know, just that you see that I'm not making that up, and that you know, that they really are Gnostic, and they have such elements even in their symbolism. And of course, you have the open book. Of course, there is another uh, um, German occult society that famously used an open book as their symbol. Not gonna tell you which one because do you know which one?
It's classified information, and no, I don't know.
No, it's yeah, because it's the Illuminati. Uh, so,
Okay.
but actually, they're not. Well, in German they call it well, Illuminaten and Perfektilibisten, which is a word they just made up, but it kind of sounds like
The illuminated
that
ones,
they're
the ones
perfect.
who
Yeah,
are.
they're enlightened and illuminated and perfect, and yeah, and their symbol is actually is actually the all of Minerva on an open book.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. The illuminated ones, obviously, that takes you back to Lucifer, the light bringer, illuminated with knowledge, illuminated by the light. But when you look at, like, the Sufis call themselves the illuminated ones. In fact, they call themselves the perfect Illuminati. Right? The
Yeah.
Sufis are the
Well, that
perfect.
is what the Illuminati call. Well, Illuminati means like enlightened, right? Or yeah, and then in German they called themselves perfekte Libisten, the perfect people, the perfect enlightened people.
So, and that in Islam, that parallels exactly. They have the insan al-kamil, the insane as a camel. That's Muhammad, the perfect man, the perfected man. In fact, more correctly, the perfected man. And if you follow in his footsteps, you too can become perfect like him, which goes back to your original talk of if you follow these processes, you too can become God. You will become like the Messiah. You too will be Christ. It's just a title. You too can be God, which atheists teach, which yep, these ideas.
Remember the symbol, right? Okay,
I'll go
well,
back. Let me bring
yeah,
it up.
well, if it's easy for you to go back, but yeah, okay, so yeah, that one is much better preserved than mine. So so in addition to hammer and sickle and the eagle with the sun wheel, in the middle we have the perfect man. That was even a statue that the National Socialists used and built. It was like the and that image is from that statue. It's the same image. It's like their image of the perfect man, or the perfect Aryan. Aryan in their concept
Right. Technically,
is
also
the
the
perfect man.
perfected man, the
The
man who's
perfect,
become perfect.
right. Because exactly in their view, evolution doesn't work by itself. They have to help it a little through genocide and stuff.
Yeah, so you've got the perfected man. They go through rituals or process to achieve perfection, right? And they've got so that's part of the idea. But also, when you look at from a Muslim perspective, again, just to give parallels to Sufism and Islam, when you look at the light, right? When they say they are the illuminated ones, the light that illuminates them is the light of the moon. Oddly, it's always the light of the moon. So the moon again. Now you go back to paganism. Now you go back to
Not the morning star.
It could be, it could well be, but the stars are a little far away. So, but because they
No.
speak of the moonlight.
The morning star is not a star. In any case, the morning
Satan,
star
that's
is a
yeah,
planet.
yeah, true. But I mean, you've got these cross symbolism. It's like it goes from this to this to this. It connects from here to there to there. It's not always direct. It's not always, shall we say, on the nose. But the light of the moon is again this pagan symbol for not Christ, basically. Let's put it that way.
Well, no,
So,
it is their Christ. It is their Christ. It's just not Jesus.
yeah, Saturn. It comes back to Venus or Saturn, and that would again,
Right.
Saturn is also then become Satan. I mean, it's the way the symbolism works. It doesn't always make sense. It's not like logical the way we understand it. Hold on, let's see what is Mick say. There was a mistranslation in the Bible that said Moses had horns coming from his head instead of shafts of light. Okay, there were weird mistranslations of Bibles in the past. That is true. That also is true. Yeah, so yeah, the powers are strongest when the moon is out. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you look, ask any insane asylum, things go weird when the moon is out in full. Let's okay, this one.
Oh, that's just all the photos of places are actually photos I took myself.
But it says
That's
urchristliche
just that's
Gemeinde.
their compound or their church, if you will. But they hate the word church. They say Jesus didn't create a church, so churches are evil, and we are the true Christians, and that's what it says on the sign as well. So they never called it a church, but it was basically a church anyway.
Yeah, this is like
And
Christian
on the sign
community,
it says urchristliche Gemeinde, which means
like
well
arch
they
Christian
coined this
community,
word Urchristen.
arch.
And Urchristen just means, well, that that the
No, it
original
means it's
Christians.
arch Christian, like an archbishop, a
Right.
bishop over others, like an original,
No,
primal. But
not arch. No. Urchristen means original Christians.
true, it
The
means
true
primordial,
Christians.
primordial.
They're the true Christians. They're the original Christians
No,
in that
we
sense.
would translate it in English as primordial, original, early
Yeah.
source.
Primordial. Yeah.
But it also has an implication of arch, as in over others. It's the true one, the authentic. The rest are false or less authentic. When in English would also have an implication of we are the ones of authenticity, whereas everything else is kind of fake or a fake representation. So there's an originality to it, an authenticity, a quality to it that's lacking in others. So it's kind of like an insult in a sense.
Oh yeah, they hated Catholics with a passion. Uh, um, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I mean, they claim to be the original Christians, like about 5,000 other groups that can't agree what original Christianity was, which to me is insane. I did a show here.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Now, like the Muslims, they also claim that the Bible is distorted. That's why they have their prophet, who gets who has a phone line like to the true God, which is not Jehovah, but they don't tell you that. But and that's why they have all these new revelations and so on, and because the Bible has been distorted. That's same teaching as with Muslims.
So predictable. That is so predictable. That's so scary. Oops, let me just let's see. Okay, that I think was that the last one? Okay, in this series, this was the last picture. Shall we? I know we've got more pictures in the other folder. Shall we pick those up for next time? Go through some other images and then.
As you want.
No, I mean, we've done like an hour and a half, which is pretty good, and my throat is hurting right now. I mean, this has been fascinating. It's a lot to take in, actually. It's a different way of seeing the world, thinking about the world. And it adds just another layer of interpretation. And you realize these people are, I mean, they see the world in a way that the rest of us don't. They interpret things in a way that we don't. They talk in layers and riddles. There's just another world on top of the world that we don't get, that from the way these people's minds work, the way their ideology works. So any thoughts from you? Any further things? I mean, anything you would like to discuss in future? What do you think would be relevant? Like we mentioned, deconstructing a show or a movie and talking about how Gnostics see those things. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm cool with whatever you have in mind.
Yeah, I mean, any thoughts? Ave Maria Theotokos says, "Hi, Steve Emmanuel, we're for you and with you." So yeah, at least there's this big discussion now about Allah being Yahweh or not, because I mean, I think, I mean, when you do the sums, clearly not. I mean, the intention would be that they want to worship the one true God, but they've clearly gone in the wrong direction, or they've distorted, the idea of the one true God. Is something very wrong there. So yeah, any final thoughts from you, Emmanuel? Any thoughts from you that you think would be interesting, worth sharing?
No, I can talk a little bit more about my experience, but we can do that
Please, yeah, go
in
ahead. I mean,
another episode or something.
about that. I mean, that would be interesting. Just give us a few minutes of insight there. That would be helpful.
Well, what aspect? Or maybe the people have some questions. Maybe there's certain
Do you know anything
aspects
about the
they want to
Fabians
know
and
more about. What
do you know anything
aspects
about
do you
the
want to know more
Fabians?
about?
Can you see the question on the bottom there? Yeah.
Oh, the Fabians. You mean like the Fabian
Fabian Society.
socialists?
Yeah, yeah.
You mean like the ones that literally have a wolf in sheep's clothing as their logo? Those Fabians?
Talk about it. I mean, hey, you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, love these guys. No, yeah. I mean, what what else do you want me to say? I mean, I feel I don't need to expose the Fabians because, yeah, exactly. Someone who has literally a wolf in sheep's clothing as their logo. I mean, what? I can talk a little bit about it. I mean, obviously, Fabian society is in relation to the Roman dictator, right? What is he called? Fabius Maximus, right? and he was famous for his delay tactics against Hannibal. And that's kind of their tactic as well, right? I showed you those symbols and badges where they say, "We are socialists in action. We're gonna have socialism now. We're gonna put it into action now. We're not gonna wait." The Fabian socialists are the other way around. They are delayers. Fabian was the delayer, so they use delay tactics. They're not putting it into action now. They play the long game. They're going the long march. They're going the long march through the institutions. They're not gonna attack and destroy the old society outright with violent revolution. They're gonna do it smart. They're gonna infiltrate those evil capitalists into institutions and the religions and those evil Catholics. They're going to infiltrate them from the inside. They're going to play the long game. That's what it means.
Man, crazy. Yeah,
And
the real
obviously, I don't like them. And by the way, George Orwell didn't like them either, which is the Fabian Society was founded, as it just so happens, in 1884.
Oh, wow. 1984. Very. I wonder if there's some kind of numerological significance to that. I mean, look, I don't buy a lot of this stuff, but sometimes you like these people love to play these kinds of games, though. It's the way that they just enjoy word games. They enjoy this kind of thing. You see, it's clearly part of their mindset. It's the way they mess around with things. Interesting. I mean, jihad does the same, though. You've got the Muslims who are what's it? There's a guy that calls it the caliphate curve. There are those who want it now, who use violence, like the Marxists originally did. And then you've also got the jihadis who infiltrate into politics, into universities, into the schools, into the judiciary, into the law enforcement wings. So the same ideas. The Muslims are doing the very same things. They slowly infiltrate over decades. I mean, they chose a wolf in sheep's clothing, and man, it's insane that they're telling you to your face. Yeah, Gary G says, "Who do you think taught the jihadis?" Yeah, I mean the communists actually, 1967, after the failure of that conflict, the Russians were highly embarrassed because they trained and armed the Muslims. The Muslims were embarrassed. They realized then that they couldn't win militarily against Israel, so they trained thousands, about 4,000 propagandists, and they made up a whole bunch of stories. They used the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They created this in America, who like Jews, who like Israel, and give their own money. They're not funded by Israel. They're just people like you, me, and your neighbor, and the person that works at the checkout at the grocery store you buy at, who donates $1, $2, $5 because they like Israel, and it's that simple. Yes, please go on, Emmanuel.
Since you're basically talking about anti-Semitism at this point, let me just add, since we were talking about the National Socialists and the Gnostic elements of them, like I said, Gnostics hate Jehovah with a passion, and of course they hate the people who believe in Jehovah with a passion.
Super. Yeah. Can you tell us a bit more your thoughts? Because I mean, I've come to the same conclusion.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that. I mean, I know about I said my mother was a socialist, but and she was even a communist. Like I said, she was a politician lifelong, or most of her life, of the Communist Party in Germany. But she was also, at least to an extent, an anti-Semite and a National Socialist, to an extent as well. And you'd think those would be contradictory, but again, at her level, to her and from her Gnostic perspective, keep in mind, Hegel, Marx, and Gnosticism love contradiction, right? So to her, it wasn't even a contradiction, and even if it would have been a contradiction, she would have liked that. So she was actually, I don't want to I don't want to talk bad about my mother, but she was a National Socialist as well, to an extent, and an anti-Semite. And she actually she she read to me uh, the as a bedtime story. She read to me their gift pills, the poisonous mushroom, which is an infamous um, children's book by the Nazis. Um, uh, and anti-Semitic children's book. It's horrible, and it's actually based on Karl Marx's on the Jewish question. It's a they made Karl Marx's on the Jewish question, which is extremely anti-Semitic, and they made that into a children's book
Good grief.
with with drawings, portraying them as, well, for example, poisonous mushrooms and so on. And my mother read that to me as a child. It was horrible. Um, and since I'm talking about my mother, okay, and you guys wanted me to talk a little bit more, right? So we're gonna end this. I'm gonna talk about how my mother died. My mother wasn't very old, and she died recently, and um, yeah, it's kind of sad, but it illustrates this. It illustrates her um, extreme fanatical belief in Gnosticism. Because like we were saying, Gnosticism basically rejects objective physical reality. That's also what 1984 hints at. 2 + 2 = 5 is a rejection of objective physical reality. That's what it
Mhm.
symbolizes, right? And George Orwell talks about this some more in 1984. But anyway, like I said, at the mainstream follower level, communists are absolute materialists. But at the leadership level, where my mother was at least close to, they are Gnostics and they are absolute idealists. And that was the attitude of my mother. So when she got sick, she wasn't, she didn't need to die. She wasn't, she didn't have, uh, normally the people who had the illness she had don't die. But she refused to go to the doctor. She refused to get help because she thought, she basically literally thought that she was God herself. And of course, as God, she has the power to control the evil, illusory physical world, right? So when she gets ill, she thinks she can just negate the illness using the power of her mind. And the more she got sick, the more she refused to go to the doctor, and the more she insisted that she could just negate the illness with the power of her mind. She really believed that, and she died because of that.
I'm really sorry. That is very sad. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's a tough childhood you've had, and considering the other things you've told, man, yeah. I mean, were you close to your mom?
Honestly, no, because there's a whole portion that I didn't talk about, um, because as I said, I never believed in any of that stuff. I was never given a choice. I was never asked, "Hey, do you want to believe in any of that?" You know, or do you want to leave? I was never given a choice. I was just kind of forced into it.
Mhm.
And so what happened is that I always tried to run away. I usually failed until I was 15, when I finally succeeded in running away. And so I didn't have, after that, I didn't have as much contact to my mother anymore. And like I said, it was very difficult. I would have wanted more contact, but it was very difficult to deal with her. I mean, how do you deal with someone who literally thinks that they're God. And every time you disagree with them, and every time you try to tell them, hey, maybe you should go to the doctor, they, they, she gotten very hostile. I tried to help her, but every time I tried to help her, she gotten very hostile, and and she literally thought she already knows everything, and and on top of that, if you disagree with her, and especially if you tell her go to the doctor, she then blames you, because that's how their philosophy works, right? It's not so. It's the power of the mind, right? Like in 1984, like it's explained in 1984. There is a scene in 1984 where, after being tortured, Winston,
Ask him how many fingers he sees.
right, but yeah, but more than that, he realizes that if, like, he and O'Brien like sit in a room, everyone is sitting on a chair, and um O'Brien thinks he can fly, like has superpowers like in the Matrix, you know and Winston, as the onlooker, thinks he sees O'Brien flying. Then it happens. Of course, that's not the case. But for someone who's Gnostic, someone who denies objective physical reality, the only the mind matters. So if you think you can fly, and if the onlooker thinks you can fly, you can fly. And that's literally the example that's used in
And you were
1984.
introducing negativity by bringing these
Right,
bad thoughts.
exactly. So my mother realized, hey, how come I can't magically cure myself? Oh, it must be because my son doesn't believe in it.
Wow. Sorry, man.
So,
You
so
know,
as you can see, it was very difficult, especially trying to help her at the end was very difficult, because not only did she not accept any help and any encouragement to go to the doctor, but on top of that, she would blame you for trying to help her.
crazy stuff. That's a minefield to navigate. I'm really sorry to hear that, and it's unfortunate, but wow, it's wow. But man, you've shared some very interesting ideas. You've really changed, I think, I would suspect, and for the audience, a lot of people's thinking. You've opened up a few doors and windows that they probably would not have known about. Myself too. I'll end off with saying that I learned years ago about the Gnosticism before I even really knew what Gnosticism was. But I knew before I'd studied Gnosticism, but I knew that there was Gnosticism in Star Wars, oddly enough, because I realized the things that Yoda says to Luke. He goes, "Not bodies of crude matter are we are beings of light." And he's not referring to Christianity. He's not referring to, because in Christianity, you are made of soul and body. Whereas, this was
Notice how in
Gnostic.
all these movies, isn't it curious? In all these movies, the bad guy is always called Lord so and so, Lord Vader, Lord. What is it in the Lego movie? It's also
You're
Lord
right.
whatever.
You're right.
It's always
And
Lord
then
so and so.
the good guy, as you were telling me earlier this afternoon, is always a regular guy that has nothing special. You need to talk
Neo,
about that
right?
Lego movie. You know what? You need to
It's
talk about next time the Lego movie. It's a
no,
regular
that
guy,
yeah.
because regular people, by being smart and working hard, can become God. I was like, yeah,
That's what that group taught, and that's why my mother called me Emmanuel. It's because they believe everyone has the potential to become his own Christ, his own savior,
crazy
through
stuff,
through
dude. I mean,
gnosis, through gnosis.
but when you put it like that, it's actually really, despite all of this complicated tomfoolery and magic and blah blah, it's actually really simple. And two, it looks kind of childish. It's like a lot of pretense hiding something that's really childish. Wow, wow. Seriously, man, this has been fascinating. And so yeah, let's end it here. I need to take a break for about 10 days. I won't be available till the week after next at earliest, and I'll still have family, so I have to work around that. But man, this has been really, really interesting, and thank you for coming on and sharing
Thank
this. I mean,
you.
this is no, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking at you on the screen over there, but my camera is here, so and I've got another screen over there, and they're kind of far away from me. They're more than an arm's length away, so yeah, it's not like I don't do that. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, thank you, man. We'll do this again. So to the audience, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for Silver for supporting the channel. Thanks to all those who do support the channel. Again, our guest links are in the description. You can find him there. Definitely some interesting thoughts. Definitely food for thought on these videos. As I said, I hadn't realized I'd actually watched a few of his videos in the past, and I didn't know who he was. But here we are, and I'd actually have watched some of your stuff, and it actually had given me some insight. So thank you. Philip says, great guest. Several have said subbed, like Janice here. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. I will see you guys all soon. I hope you're all having a wonderful summer if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. And yeah, Emmanuel, last word to you.
2 + 2 is 4.
2 + 2 is 4. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If you have a winky, you're a man. If you don't have a winky, you're a woman. Just remember that. Just keep it straight, okay? That's it. Let's just stick to the facts. Let's just keep it simple. Good night, guys. God bless. See you all soon. Bye.